You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 185. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. The topic I want to tackle today is, does size matter? And no, I'm not talking about that. Get your head out of the gutters. I'm talking about podcast size. I'm talking about their downloads, the reach, the followers, all of that stuff, because it's definitely a question that I get from prospective clients, from regular clients of, how big of a podcast can we land? Is that important? And I will share with you what my answer is in just a moment, but I want to share with you first this stat, and quote, "It's crucial for advertisers to note 19% of the U.S. weekly podcast audience, which translates to 17 million listeners, do not listen to the top shows in the top 1,000. Podcasting advertising effectiveness for said listeners can be unlocked exclusively through the gateway of smaller shows because they tend to be more flexible financially, creatively, and work to target more precise people, audiences, with specific demographics and targets." I'm quoting this because it is exactly the same for when you are a guest on a show. I tell all of my clients that no, size doesn't really matter. You could have a show that has 150 downloads per month, and maybe the host has 1,000 followers on Instagram and 20 reviews on Apple, let's just say. And the fact is that their audience might be the exact target audience that you want to reach, that you need to have listening to you. So is it better to reach those 150 people that are listening every month? Or is it more worthwhile to go on a huge show that's getting 500,000 downloads a month? They've got 1,000 reviews and 1 million followers on Instagram. And yet those 500,000 people, they don't really care anything about what you have to say. They're a totally different demographic. You might be wanting to reach an audience of all men, and yet these 500,000 are all women. So why would you spend time, or better yet, waste time speaking to the wrong audience? You could get 150 new clients, or you could get absolutely zero based on 500,000 people. The math is pretty simple. And yet, people want to be on larger shows because they think that the return is going to be there no matter what. The key in everything is to look at who the audience is. Who is it that these podcast hosts are trying to target to have them download their show? You can tell this by looking at their social media. What are their posts about? Who are they trying to reach? What's the description of their show? These are all things that are readily available for you to look at and to decipher for yourself on who is it that you want to reach. Now, my team and I, we also have a subscription to Podchaser, which gives us demographics, such as, is it a male listening audience, a female one? What are the countries that it's being listened in? What's the average age range for the listeners? We have all of that information too. So that makes it much easier for us to really nail down who it is that we're trying to target. But when it comes to numbers, we also look at those. We look at the Apple reviews. We look at the Instagram followers. We look at the listen downloads. We look at the global reach. All of those things come into play because I want our clients to have a holistic view of who they're reaching and to know that it's not all about the size. Size doesn't always matter. It matters about who your audience is that you are talking to. And then this begs the question of, do you know who you're trying to talk to? Who's your ideal audience? What is the story that you're sharing and who needs to hear it? And if you don't know the answer to those questions, then you can't get pitched to the proper podcasts that are going to have the audience that needs to hear from you. So there's just a lot more that goes into it than simply thinking that I need to be on these shows. They're big ones. They're big names. This is what needs to be done. I want you to think more about what it is you're trying to do. Who is it you're trying to reach? What kind of a change, inspiration, education are you trying to provide? And who is that for? Then look at the podcasts that have those audiences that need to hear all of that from you. This is what's going to make the biggest bang for your buck, the biggest ROI on your investment if you are investing in podcast pitching, whether it's money or time. Most cases, it's both. And in order to get the biggest return and the biggest value, you need to know who it is that you want to speak to. So if we look back at the example that I gave you for advertisers at the beginning of the show, if advertisers aren't looking at the top 1,000 podcasts, you know that means that there's roughly 900,000 other ones that they are looking at. And those are the ones that you should be targeting too. It isn't all about the numbers per se. It's about how many lives can you change? How many people can you reach that need to hear what you have to say? Those are numbers that I'm more interested in over downloads, over followers. If you follow the blog portion of my website, then you will have seen that a couple weeks ago I posted about a podcast host wanting guests to pay $2,500 to be interviewed on his show. He wanted to be paid that. And it was because, quote, he had millions of downloads. He had millions of followers. And I dug deep. I went behind the scenes as best I could to see really what were his listen downloads according to Podchaser. What did the views on YouTube show me? How many engagements did he have on his Instagram with millions of followers? And truth be told, on his Instagram, he hid that information. That's an option that you can do, and he hid it. And I'm going to think that there's a reason why you would hide how many people are liking your post, because there aren't that many, which means and translates to you bought your followers. He's buying reviews because he was certainly not getting that many downloads. He had a good amount of reviews, but they were not genuine ones. They were all bought. And so my thought is if he's charging $2,500 per guest, that's to buy more likes, more reviews, more downloads, so that the show can, again, just be fake. So this is all about a numbers game, but if it's a game, then is that the game that you want to play? I was very clear and always am in what my stance is when it comes to paying to be on a podcast. And the answer is no. You do not need to pay to be on a podcast. There was a discussion on Twitter in which this was brought up, but then it was reversed on shouldn't hosts pay guests? And again, my answer is no. There doesn't need to be a monetary exchange when it comes to a podcast interview. Yes, there's a cost associated for the host to produce the show, but it can be minimal. And if they need money, they can create an episode that turns into a revenue generator for them. They can ask for Patreon subscribers. They can get sponsors for advertising in the middle, in the beginning, and the end of the show. There's all different kinds of ways to monetize a show without asking a guest to pay to be on the show, whether it's $25 or $2,500 or $10,000. The question then came around, well, couldn't it be compared to being on a panel and speaking at a conference? And wouldn't you expect to be paid for that? I personally would not. As I get bigger, I would hope that maybe there's an honorarium that's extended to me or offered. But at the same time, I feel that it's an honor to be asked to share a stage or to share the microphone with somebody in their home. When you go to a conference, someone else is putting that on, and they are asking you to come and be a part of it. When you go on a podcast, the host is inviting you to come and share the stage with them. There doesn't need to be money involved. If there's money involved, then there's a form of advertising. If you're being paid to speak, then don't you think that the person paying you has a right to say to a certain extent of what should be included in what you're talking about? If you're paying to be on a show, then you have the right to ask for certain assets. What is it that you're getting in return besides fake followers and fake reviews? And to go back to the example I gave of the host who wanted $2,500, he wasn't even spelling the names right in his show notes. If I'm paying $2,500, my name better be spelled right everywhere. That's just a simple fact. So when we look at size, I want you to understand that size doesn't always matter. It's the type of audience. It's knowing and defining who you want to target and then finding those audiences that podcast hosts are already talking to so that it fits, so that you reach the right audience and that you do find those numbers per se, but that they are direct correlation with who you're trying to reach, not just random people. Because anytime we talk about randomness, whether it's in friendship, it's in business, it's in podcasts, it doesn't work. You don't want random people to be your friends. You want your friends to be your friends, those you have in common. You want the podcast listening audience to be the ones who want to hear from you, who need to hear from you. You want clients to come to you because they need what you offer and you enjoy working with them. It's a reciprocal relationship. So, does size matter when it comes to podcasts? The answer is no.